Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Wendy Cooper Show, conversations with remarkable people over 50. Today my guest is a longtime colleague and friend, Rick Cesari. He is a direct response advertising pioneer and has been in that space since the 90s. Today our conversation is edited down into 39 minutes from a 1.5, almost 2 hour conversation that we had a few weeks ago. Although I am a seasoned producer of all sorts of content, I am not a seasoned Zoom recorder. So this conversation, unfortunately, I did not push the record separate tracks, which led me to have to edit a 2-hour conversation with one track of audio. And we all know how difficult that is. Enjoy the show. Why do you think that the general advertising world has a hard time accepting the pioneers and the people who actually built direct response?
That's a great question. I think it's because there's a fear of the unknown. And I think that general advertisers, the way I've always looked at it, is they've either looked down or disrespected or didn't acknowledge direct response because they really didn't understand it. And it's easy. The easiest thing to do if you don't understand something is to criticize it. Yeah. And I think that's happened. And I think there's a lot of carryover from that. That nowadays, online marketers use direct response principles. I work with a lot of large Amazon sellers. They use direct response principles, and they all invent a new language and new terminology that basically says the same thing.
CPC, by the way, cost per call turned to cost per click.
Exactly. And on Amazon, you remember TV, like media efficiency ratio, and it's like, it's the same thing that you're measuring. It's just different language. And they think that like they invented it.
I know.
Thing. I like to do, talk about when I'm being interviewed on podcasts or radio or whatever, really to talk about historical direct response and, starting way back with like the Sears catalog and then direct mail and then radio and then TV. And then all of a sudden things moved online. And really what I tell people is human nature hasn't changed. People respond to the same things and they have the same type of hot buttons. The delivery,
Hallelujah.
The delivery platforms have changed. And that's really the only thing. And then, I actually have a new book coming out called The Amazon Jungle. Oh, so the title is really about the dirty tricks that Amazon plays and how hard it is to be a third-party seller. And my co-author has been selling on Amazon since 2003, and he has an agency, and he built an 8-figure Amazon business, and he's experienced every type of. We actually call it the dirty truth about Amazon and how you can survive as a third-party seller on the world's most perilous e-commerce platform. That book will be coming out in October we're using a publisher called Morgan James. They publish.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they do, what's his name, .com secrets, and they did launch. And
what's your favorite topic to talk about when you start to talk about old school stuff and where we are today? I think we're underserved and overlooked. Honestly, I'm honest with you. And then the big money goes to all of the agencies out there now doing direct response and charging so much money, or they were before COVID, right? To do DR campaigns.
Yeah. No, that's a little frustrating is never get, I don't know if it's not an ego thing, but getting you recognize it, getting the credit for kind of trailblazing a lot of this stuff. I was talking to the publisher I mentioned, Morgan James, and they published a lot of early books from the early people that were having a lot of success on the internet. And they said, those guys said that they took everything they learned from TV infomercial producers and just put it on the internet. And that's how they became successful. But nobody ever acknowledges that. They almost think like they invented all of this stuff. And I think that makes me a little upset. I
Yeah,
don't spend a lot of time worrying about it,
no, but it makes for interesting conversation. It's interesting because this is the weirdest thing. You know how, and we can talk about that because you say, I was reading on your website, and I think if we're truly old school like we are, we understood that, as more platforms came on board, more media came,
Hmm.
earned, owned, and whatever. But as we needed to now build websites that had e-commerce shopping carts that would cost a freaking arm and a leg, by the way, when we first had to have websites in 1999, I want to take the 800 number out of this one campaign. It was called Do Da Way, cardio kickboxing, right after Billy
Hmm.
Blanks' thing. And I wanted to take the 800 number. I didn't want to use an 800 number because I thought it sounded really cool. Go to dodaway.com
Yeah.
and make, and they wouldn't, the telemarketing mafia,
Yeah.
they wouldn't allow us to test with just a URL because they couldn't track the media, right?
Right. Right.
And so that was a big deal. But it wasn't until I did Red Skeleton and Timeless Media wanted to air it like 3 years later
Hmm.
and said, why don't we test it for Christmas? And I said, and we had like a week. And I said, cool, can I just drive to a URL? And we did, and it changed everything overnight. It was like, boom, super success. I think it just hit me why we don't have the respect that we deserve.
What do you think?
Because we didn't really change. I
Yeah.
mean, we did change, but where's ERA? Yeah.
We should have been on the forefront of the internet marketing. And it was like a dozen years before they actually got really interested and involved in it.
So for people
So internet
listening,
retailers started up instead of, that could have been us.
yes, it all could have been us. It was when ERA changed from NEMA to ERA, Electronic Retailing Association, for people listening. It was the only, I'm just going to set it up. It was the only association for direct response marketing, basically,
Hmm.
right? There was the Direct Marketing Association. Is that still around? The DMA, Direct
Yeah.
Marketing,
Yes.
but that was more mail order and stuff like
Yeah.
that, credit card inserts
Print,
and
print and
print.
mail order. Yeah.
Right. And the ERA, electronic or NEMA, was more television. It was pretty much
Mhm.
all television, right? And then live shopping started to get a footprint in there. HSN, QVC, they started to join in. And then, but in 1999, I think it was, they named it the Electronic Retailing Association. And I said, you guys, you need to have a tagline, and it needs to be on radio, online, on TV, which
That
they
would have been
did.
perfect.
But they had that, but they
Yeah.
never really, they fought like crazy to not put online.
Well, they weren't proactive in bringing the people who were the pioneering online marketers to make them part of the thing,
Yes.
because it's kind of like it's kind of a mindset that people just don't like to change, and they don't like to see change. And you think about how, classified ads and newspapers have just, gone by the wayside from the inability to change. And I think everybody was having so much success with the TV marketing. They're like, why would we look at this new type of
Right.
marketing? And, hindsight's always 2020 when you look back like that. But I think it was definitely a lack of foresight and leadership. Otherwise, we could have been in way ahead of the curve on that.
Yeah, I think that there was always some people who were really progressive on that. And when I started calling it hybrid, you're calling it brand response, where
Mhm.
we really started to say, okay, what if we made it look beautiful? Because as a producer and a creative, I was like, okay, let's do something that looks like branding, but uses the fundamentals of direct response as far as quantifiable advertising. All of the shows that you always produced, Rick, they were always beautifully produced, right?
Thank
They
you.
think that's what Cesari meant to me, all the way down back to to Jay, with the
Yep.
JuiceMan. They were beautifully produced. And there was so many people, you mentioned there was so much money being made in television. Holy shit. Yeah, there was money being made. This is what people don't understand. 6-Day Bio Diet made, and that was right around the same time as Jay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was juice fasting through organic juices that we actually brought in from
Yeah.
whatever. But that
Yeah.
was like so 13-1. I'd go in the office and I would
Yeah.
like get my fax machine report of the West telemarketing, and it was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
holy guacamole.
It was
So
like a
talking
penny machine. You put $1 in the front and $13 come out the back.
Yeah. So you're right. Maybe everybody was so used to growing up in that culture and that mindset that when things started to shift from the performance not being as high as it was for so many years, if you were having a really great success on television,
Yeah.
then maybe things started to change a little bit, right? And we had to start to build websites. We had to start putting e-commerce onto a website. That's where Johnny Mathis, live commercial, made all his money, was because he charged $1 a transaction.
Yeah.
You can set up a Shopify site in 15 minutes now.
Yes.
And you have credit card processing, merchant, you have it all.
Yeah, it's amazing how easy it is to get into e-commerce now.
It used to be set up a shopping cart for 20 grand.
Yeah.
Then you'd have to be approved for a merchant account. And
Yeah.
a lot of people couldn't get approved for a merchant account, right?
You're still facing that with the CBD world right now. It's very hard to get a merchant account.
Oh, you can't do CBD on Shopify?
No, you can. Well, I don't know if you can or not, to be honest with you. We built
probably not.
Yeah, we mainly because of they're all afraid. They don't know what the federal government's going to do when it comes to CBD sales. So it's really hard to get a merchant account. I have a good friend that's been a successful entrepreneur for many years, and he lives down in Arizona, and he has started a CBD business and has been in it for quite a while. He asked me to come along and help do some marketing, which is interesting because I like the challenge of, and probably similar to you, of marketing new products and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So
a couple of years ago, I was sitting in the middle of the night at the House of Pies in Silver Lake, where I was editing in the middle of the night with my editor, and we were having a break. And I said, you know what, Johnny, I want to open up, when pot becomes legal, I said, I want to open up a little diner just like this, and I want to call it the Pot Pie.
Good name.
It's a great name, right? You have all different kind of edible pies, right? Yeah. And then you could also have pot pies, I suppose, but that wasn't the idea.
I like both of those things.
Yeah. I know that marketing of CBD, you have to just know the parameters. It's
yeah, and a lot of it comes down to content marketing and social media, and there aren't a lot of paid advertising channels that you can use yet.
Do you know what a flash briefing is? Mm-mm. Do you know what an Alexa skill is?
No.
So Amazon isn't doing a really good job of letting people know that this medium is available on their Amazon.com account. Whoever owns an Echo device, you have the ability to enable certain flash briefings, which are meant to be like news, right? Yeah. So you put them in your list, you go into your account and you select, I want to hear story time, or I want to hear calm, or I want to hear this. Yeah. And that's a flash briefing by CNN, by Fox, by whomever, BBC. You go there and you select. So it's a medium where the consumer has already selected you. They've selected you. You are now in the Amazon algorithm. Okay. You are a product on Amazon, because anybody that downloads your flash briefing sees people who listen to this, listen to that. Okay. It cost $0. Wow. And it's literally, Rick, 0 to 10 minutes of audio media on Amazon. Part of the problem is you have to let everybody know that you have a flash briefing. And just like I said to you, do you know what a flash briefing is? Right. You say no, but you use Amazon, and your head is all over Amazon. Right. And you still didn't know that this existed.
And I'll give you a good analogy. When Amazon came out with Amazon Live, I thought that was going to revolutionize. I thought it would be like
the shopping channel,
the home shopping channel in your living room. So I started doing some Amazon Lives with my clients, and there were like zero viewers. They did nothing to promote them, and the people on Amazon didn't know to go and watch it.
Right.
So, and I feel like this is a similar type thing, and I don't know if they just wait for things to organically catch on or what, but I hope it doesn't go the same way as Amazon Live, because I had a lot of high hopes for that, and it kind of just nothing ever happened.
Yeah. But they didn't focus really on the features and benefits of a product. They didn't talk about, they didn't
That's my
demonstrate it.
favorite topic, features
They,
versus benefits.
exactly. It's like for every feature, there has to be three benefits, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I try to teach Amazon sellers is most of them will just take their product and talk about, how many volts it is, how big the motor is, dishwasher safe plastic, whatever. And they don't talk about benefits at all.
The easiest way to describe features and benefits, because people have a hard time understanding features and benefits, is a ball with a handle. The feature is the handle, right? The benefits are you can carry it. It's easy to carry, right? It doesn't roll away.
That's a
right?
good analogy. Yeah. Anyway, go full circle. We met, we were talking earlier about, you were talking about NEMA and ERA. I think we met at a really, really early, either NEMA or ERA. We were either both on the board or something, and it was in New York City. And that was the first time I had met you. And
oh my God, in New York City?
Yeah, I forget what type of meeting it was. And I had a brand new pair of loafers and you complimented them. I said, wow, that person is really nice.
Oh, that's nice. Oh my God. That had to have been during 6-day bio diet days because.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. It was literally in the earlier mid 90s for sure.
Yeah. Because I used to go back there. It's funny. We started that on Howard Stern. You know, we were the classic case that went on Howard Stern back in the day when he was king of all media. And oddly enough, we had 6-day bio diet. We had created a commercial. No, we had sent it to Howard Stern and we didn't have the money to run a commercial or a host read with Howard Stern. This was probably 93, 94, something like that. Right. And I remember getting in my cars in Manhattan Beach and I was driving through Culver City to our office and I heard our commercial read by Howard Stern because he liked the diet and that was it. That was like, I got to the office and the phones were ringing like crazy.
It's harder to do. I find it's harder to do that with PR now. In the early days, I mean, that same thing happened to us in the very early days with the JuiceMan. He was on a segment WOR in New York. Richard Bay was the host of the Richard Bay Show. And he had a 10-minute segment, and I tell the story all the time. And he said, we didn't even have free recipes, but Jay said, send us $1 and we'll send you back my magic dozen of free recipes. So this happened like June 30th, and it was the July 4th weekend coming up. Right after July 4th, the mail truck pulls up to our office, and the mailman gets out with one of those 3-foot canvas sacks of letters, goes back to the truck. He does that. There were 4 sacks. We had over 18,000 letters
with $1.
Yeah, with $1 in them. But more importantly, we answered all of them with the free recipes and put an order form for the juicer, and we generated enough sales of juicers to fund the business. I mean, and early days of PR, you could do that, like the Howard Stern example you gave, where everything just blew up overnight.
It's blew amazing. Up overnight. Right. So we then became one of the biggest favorite people 6-day bio diet did on Howard Stern. So we started to pay, right? And he would read it and he loved it and Robin loved it and all this stuff. So then I would get to go back to New York. That's probably when I met you.
You look at the early days, we were just talking about how much money you could make on a TV in the early days because TV time was so cheap. People didn't know infomercials yet. They didn't have bad experiences. They weren't being ripped off by the bad players. And it was good. So that was same thing happened on Facebook. And TV time was cheap and there were lots of viewers.
Yes.
Very similar parallel to Facebook. The first people to start to do advertising and selling products. Time was cheap. Ads were cheap. People weren't getting ripped off. Now it's coming full circle and it's harder and harder to make money on Facebook. So it's like whenever there's a new platform, you have this short burst of time when it's really easy to make millions of dollars, and then slowly that people figure it out and it goes.
Well, that's what's gonna So that's what's gonna happen with my. So here's my whole thing with the flash briefing thing.
That's why I was thinking of it because you're in the early days of it, so it's a good wide open market.
people have selected you. They have to enable you. So they know you're going to be there. They know, like, and trust you already because you're in their daily news.
But you have, so that part, you've fixed the credibility or the trust issue. So that's good. And then probably a lot of the principles like you've used in radio would work through voice. Obviously learn through direct response, but you mentioned CTAs. And I see so many people in the online marketplace and the brand world, and they get people excited with their advertising, but they never ask them to take the next step. And, that's ingrained in what you do. So immediately you're thinking, boy, if someone's listening to this flash briefing, what do I ask them to do?
What do I ask them to do? Because podcasting, audio format, the toughest thing is engagement. Getting anybody to engage with you is like pulling teeth.
Yeah, and you probably already know this. I learned this. There's a guy named Dennis YU. He's a big online marketer. He has an agency. Anyway, he had a good tip. I used to send people to my website and then, go get this free download. And now I just say, if you want to get more information, just email me at my email address, Rick Cesari, and then you get that really fast, really good feedback.
Let's talk about the Amazon effect. How did I know? I was working with Squatty Potty at the time, and I could not get them to understand that the increase in sales at Amazon were due to the commercial that you ran on television. Yeah. They just would not ever accept the end, and then they had to be factored into the MER because those sales weren't like that. Right. We'll take away the sales that were there prior, but you come to, they could not understand that. And now the Amazon factor is everything.
Yeah. No, well, we tell them that in the book, and you already know this. It's like any advertising you do off Amazon is going to generate Amazon sales because that's the preferred way that many people like to shop because of Prime. So they might see it anywhere else through your advertising, but they're going to choose to buy it on Amazon because that's the way they like to shop.
I think websites for your product are more important than ever, but don't expect to ever sell anything on your website because everyone is going to go and shop and buy it on Amazon. So at the end of the day, what is an effective website these days? That you have to make it so that you're an excellent brand partner. Whether it's Walmart, Target online, Amazon online, you have to be the best partner possible. Because what's going to happen is people are going to go to your website and they're going to see who you are, what you're all about, what's your culture, and then they're going to go like to Amazon to buy you.
They'll buy it where they're most comfortable. Yeah.
Yes. But also what happens, Rick, is they now go to Amazon and they see your product, but they see all the competition surrounding your product. Right? Yep. Just like if you're in a retail store, you see the competition surrounding it. But what happens is if they've gone to your website and you've impressed them with who you are as a brand, what your brand message is, what your culture is, where you come from, the price isn't going to matter so much because Amazon sometimes isn't about price. It's about convenience, right?
Well, the same thing we try to do with the TV advertising, establish credibility and trust and USP, what differentiates you from the other products out there. But you made a great point. If you do a good job of that on your website, then price doesn't matter. And that's what the branding is all about.
And as much as I have a hate relationship with Amazon, I have a complete love relationship with them also. Every
third-party seller has the love-hate relationship for sure.
So when is this book coming out?
It's supposed to be coming out in October. We're trying to time it. They've moved Prime Day back. So the latest we've heard is the new Prime Day is going to be in the beginning of October. So we're trying to time the book launch for that, just to see if we could tie into some of the PR.
Can we talk about your books? You have 3 books that you've written.
Yeah, 3. So that's interesting because after I kind of closed down the agency, I made a decision. I said, I'm going to write 5 books by the time I'm 65. I'm 63 right now. And so the first one I had written in 2011, and that just was kind of like a, self-biography of the early infomercial world, and talked about the JuiceMan and George Foreman Grill, and it was called Buy Now. But then I did a fun one. This was called Building $1 Billion Brands. and that was just talking about some of the products like Sonicare and George Foreman Grill and OxiClean and GoPro cameras that had all grown into billion-dollar businesses.
Yeah.
But all of them were basically the growth and scaling happened through direct response TV.
Yes.
So just talking about not just the marketing aspect of it, but what else did these brands have in common, from good management teams to, unique selling propositions and, good positioning, that type of thing. And then the latest one is did a little bit of a twist, which was video persuasion. And that was taking all of the things I learned about selling through video and put it in a book so that people that were making online video and YouTube videos could benefit from some of the things that you and I have basically lived through for the last 25 years or whatever, 20 years, whatever. And it was really fun to write because it was kind of like, just all the stuff, just all the information just kept coming out. And all
I'm sure.
How do you think you got so creative?
I don't know. Number one, I'm a Pisces, so I'm automatically creative. I graduated high school. I never went to college. I literally did not know what an SAT was. I joke with my friends now that we thought it stood for Saturday, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up in Northridge, California, and on the day after high school, I got in my brand new VW Bug that my dad bought me, and I took off. I have to tell you, I set myself on a course of live and learn. And I never thought of myself as a creative person until I got into a 6-day bio diet, where that got started by Jamie Cobbler and my ex-husband, Bob Cooper. And just as something that they had no freaking idea what they were doing, right? And I was working for Apollo Advisors as a secretary. Mm-hmm. And I realized when I went to their office that they didn't understand even what sales tax was, or mm-hmm. they didn't have any administrative abilities. So I went into 6-day bio diet to help them because the Howard Stern thing had happened, mm-hmm. right? And I was the brains and the because I just came from this secretary, administrative assistant, thrown into situations where I learned to be creative. And then I realized that was what I have always been, is creative.
No, and it's interesting because you don't go to college for that. And, what I've noticed is, and just in this conversation, is your curiosity. You have curiosity about new things, and that leads you to discover new marketing ideas and things. But I have a similar story from my background I talk about usually on the podcast is I actually studied biology in college, and I was going to be a marine biologist, but I was tired of school. I didn't want to go to graduate school. So my family was living in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I moved back down there, and I became kind of a bum for a year, a bartender and a lifeguard. And it was fun. And actually I learned how to sell, because the only way as a lifeguard, I was at the pool decks, and the only way you made money was selling suntan lotion. So I learned a good skill there. And, but I was always motivated to do better than that. And so I read a lot of books, and, a lot of the books at the time were like how to make money in real estate. And I started investing in real estate, but then that led me to the first people that were using infomercials were the real estate guys. And that's when I got involved in it. And like you, I didn't have any formal training in marketing. I just learned as I went. Yep. and had a knack for it. So
I think that's kind of the best way. You reminded me of where I first became creative. I too ran away and joined the circus. I worked for mm-hmm. Club Med, and when I worked for Club Med, which was actually in my mid 20s, it wasn't even when I was super young. I went to Club Med, and then I got to produce like every night at Club Med, there's always like a show that the
exactly.
Okay, so somebody has to produce those, and then mm-hmm. if you're lucky enough, you work in the animation department. But mm-hmm. I wasn't lucky enough to work in the animation department, but I was lucky enough to be in every single opportunity there was to be in a show, right?
Right.
And then one week we had the red and the white sports competition, right? The GMs would come and we would greet them, and then we would tag, oh, I want this one, and we put them on teams. And I had to produce the entire show for the red team. And I produced the entire thing. And that was my first taste of, look at what I did. Because I was you had to take music and do lip sync and do costumes and do all sorts of stuff. And I won, right? I tied gigantic ribbons around the palm trees in the middle of the night. So when people got up in the morning and walked down the line of palm trees to the restaurant.
Where was the Club Med you were working at?
Bahamas, Paradise Island.
Oh, okay. I was only at one Club Med, and I didn't actually go there to be in it, but it was in Tahiti in Moorea. Yeah. And a friend and I were actually we had just made some money through some successful infomercials, and we were flying down to Australia to take in the America's Cup race. It was in Perth, and the airline stopped in Tahiti. And it had like a 6-hour layover, and we got off and ended up staying for a month. And somehow we ended up at the Club Med in Moorea, and we weren't actually paying guests, so we got thrown out. So that's my Club Med.
Well, story. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, Club Med was kind of good to me. I worked my ass off, but I traveled all over the world working with Club Med. It was hard work. Yeah, it was a great experience. But that's where I first got my taste of art direction, set direction, costume, things like that I actually could pull that off, and then the talent thing. And then one thing led to another. And when I found myself, when I formed C Spot Run Productions in 1997, this is literally how it happened. I lost everything after 6 Day Bio Diet, right? I lost everything. That was Wild West days where everybody you had a success and then you were freaking broke because.
Well, people didn't understand the bell-shaped curve that
there was a lot of crooks.
Well, that was going up and up, but then the infomercial would stop working, and you built up this giant overhead, and then the income wasn't coming in. I went through 2 of those myself, where I'd made over $1 million and lost it back again.
Yes,
this was in the middle and late 80s.
Yeah. So with 6 Day Bio Diet, it was so successful. I was like I was running the offices while everybody else was snorting coke and going to strip clubs with Charlie Sheen in Century City. Yeah. Honestly, and then we did. They did a bad deal with someone in Florida. I won't say who. And then they kind of took over the money, and then eventually I was left with freaking nothing. I was left with nothing, and then I created. Slender Secret it was actually for Guthrie Ranker. It was a much better juice therapy diet. And I did that. And then Guthrie Ranker all of a sudden backs out. And Alvaro Garnero, who is now 50 for 1, he's very famous in Brazil. He was the other guy in the COVID picture of Trump and the Brazilian. That's my ex-partner, Alvaro, right? He just took it over. And so we created Slender Secret together, became the #1 diet in Brazil. I was on HSN. Slender Secret became another success.
Awesome.
Right? Then I realized what I could do. But so that goes to wayside. And then I wake up one day and I go, I don't really want to do this stuff anymore. I just want to produce commercials. Mm-hmm. And I did the Safari water bottle my husband gave me $10,000 to marry him because he's from Italy. And so he gave me $10,000 and married him. He wasn't my husband at the time. I gave him a percentage of C-Spot Run. I'd never produced a darn thing in my life. And then I did this thing called Safari Water Bottle. One thing led to another, and everybody then started to come to me. I started to notice that, wait a minute, I can't just produce a show for you because you don't know what your cost of goods is. You don't know who's doing your fulfillment, who's buying your media. So then I started to also offer my services for the back end of their campaigns, because if I was going to take a percentage, I better be managing their back end.
Yeah. That's interesting. You learned a lot of those skills doing the 6 Day Bio Diet, the operational skills. But yeah, people always used to say, oh, why don't you do a joint venture if you're such a good marketer? And I said, well, I don't have any oversight on management ability, and I can't control that. And so that was why I would turn down a lot of deals, because you just like you've seen good managers and bad managers, and that's the difference between a successful company and not. Let me ask you a question. What do you think about TV as a marketing vehicle right now?
I think I would, if I was going to advise anybody, I would say jump all over that shit. I know that in the beginning of COVID, it was a big issue about media, about brands dropping their buys, right? They really wanted to get out of their buys, or they had to juxtapose their media and their commercials, and they couldn't do production because production in Hollywood or wherever was shut down. But all of a sudden, you're seeing an influx of direct response ads everywhere. That's telling me that media is cheap right now.
Mm-hmm.
So get in there and buy it and use television. Look to where television can be integrated with what is really happening in the world of the consumer, and how do you insert yourself into that.
No, I think it's still effective. The one thing I say is it used to be, and you know this, we could just launch products on TV and there's a good chance of success. Now I say launch them on Amazon and online, build up some success, and then use TV as like a phase 2 type of thing.
I totally agree. We used to use television as phase 1. Now it is definitely phase 2. So if you want to learn more about Rick, rickcesari.com. Send Rick an email at rick@rickcesari.com. You can also visit my website, wendycooper.com, where you can see more about my company, C-Spot Run Productions. My whole portfolio is there, so if you haven't bothered to go to my website, please do. You can also send me an email, or you can do that through my website. We talked about many, many, many topics within this conversation and a subsequent conversation, and it all has to do with direct response marketing and products. So we might continue this conversation offline on YouTube, but for now, you got a little piece of nostalgia. I thank Rick for being here. I thank Tom Morsey for my music, and I thank myself for my excellent job of editing a one-track conversation. Until next time, thanks for listening. I'm putting this one to bed.